This is good. That is good. The raw data is absolutely precious, priceless. As long as we keep those, that is priceless.
So this is why I said we can do it with 2 phones
Yeah,
and just collect
that priceless.
videos. So,
Just want to get it. You just want to get it.
I just want to, I don't know if you want to get some water or something.
You want to drink some water?
No.
No, you're good. You're gonna be all right.
What were the 3 subjects you did in the level?
I did general principles of English law. I also did some other
Economic history.
Economic
Economic history.
history,
British economic history.
and another constitutional law. But economic history was the most important of them. I think that is what set me apart in my life.
Yeah.
I had a background, some knowledge of economic history.
When you're ready for next tip, go ahead.
The Heads of Agreement is a very famous document in the history of Belize, and it is all written down, it is all documented. So later on, I will be able to get the Heads of Agreement and read it into the record. But under these Heads of Agreement, it was contemplated that Guatemala would get certain say over the affairs and the governance of Belize, and also that the Guatemalans would get certain use and enjoyment of, for example, the ports of Belize, the sea lanes of Belize, etc. Now, as I said, I was totally opposed to that, because Belize was going to be a subservient state of Guatemala. I did not say anything to anybody up at the department where I was working. I simply left the department and I went out by the what they call the freedom lot at the time, right beside Rhodes, where a rostrum had been set up. I think it was by Dr. Aranda. And I saw Dr. Aranda out there with a blackboard and chalk in hand, and he was explaining to a crowd of people the bad effects that the Heads of Agreement would have on this country. Now, at the time, the UDP was in a state of disarray because Dr. Randa was the leader of the opposition, as Mr. Lindo, who had been the leader of the UDP, had lost the election. So it is the person who was elected who held the position of leader of the opposition, and that was Dr. Aranda. But there was no harmony between Aranda and Lindo and the Belize City group. So there was a split UDP at the time, but Dr. Aranda did come up and did have a blackboard by the open lot there and did explain to the people. There was also an open rostrum, and I went up to the rostrum and I said to the people that George Price is not in charge constitutionally of external affairs and defense of Belize. So George Price has no mandate. The People's United Party has no mandate. The local government has no mandate to commit us to any solution of the heads of the Guatemalan claim. That is a matter which would have to be brought to the Belizean people by way of a referendum, and the British government had the responsibility of ensuring that we had a say in the matter by holding a referendum. At the time, the Public Service Union was headed by William Tillett, and he was supported by such people as Brian Card, a very, very well educated and well organized person. And I think it was Brian Card, more than Bill Tillett, who organized the Public Service Union to reject the proposed solution to the heads of agreement and to call on George Price and his cabinet to renounce their support. There was a big meeting called by the Public Service Union, and it was held at St. Mary's Hall in Belize City. The meeting started at about 7 o'clock the night, and the hall was capacity filled. And before the meeting was over, it was decided that the Public Service Union would give George Price and his cabinet an ultimatum. They must reject the heads of agreement publicly by a certain time definite. I think they were given 7 days, and they face the consequences. So myself and Beatrice Roberto were deputized, because at the time I was the legal advisor to the Public Service Union, and at the time I and Beatrice Roberto, then the Accountant General, were deputized to go and meet with Mr. George Price and hand him the ultimatum. We met at the Belize Teachers College on the morning, and he came there himself, and he had one of his they have a marshal system. So he had one of his marshals with him, and the marshal had an old 16-gauge firearm with him. So it was obvious to us that Mr. Price was not taking us seriously. So he asked me, he said, if I do not retract and renounce within the ultimatum period, what is going to happen? And I said to him, that is not part of my remit. I was not sent here to discuss anything like that. I was merely sent here to give you the ultimatum. But you can get in touch with Mr. William Tillett, and he will be able to tell you what is going to be the consequences. Or you can wait and see he decided to wait and see. The result was that when the day immediately after the ultimatum expired, he went to the Ministry of Finance but could not get in. The place was locked down. All the government departments, all the government ministries were locked down. None of the ministers could get into the ministry. No head of department could get into the head of department, and no civil servant went to work. Total lockdown. Mr. Ishmael Gomez, who was then head of the Chamber of Commerce, brought the Chamber of Commerce in, the merchants and their employees in. So the stores and businesses joined the strike. The teachers came in, and a whole lot of other organizations in Belize came in, to the point where the entire country came to a standstill. Only the light company, that is Belize Electricity Limited, remained operational. And right at Bill Tillett's elbow, all day, there was Mr. Jones, who was head of the electrical union, and Cyril Davis, who was also very instrumental in union business. And they were just waiting for the word to go and turn off the lights. When the governor realized that the country was under a complete strike and there was danger that the lights were going to be turned off, he sent and called us. So he sent for us, and we went to, I think it was Government House in Belmopan. And he sat at the end of a very long table. I can always remember it because I had never seen a table so long. He sat at one end, and we sat at the other end, the leaders. So he asked, who is the leader of this movement? And I said to him, because I was like a spokesman, I said to him, well, if Mr. Bill Tillett were to go out the room, then the man sitting next to him would be the leader. And if that man would go out the room, then the other one would be the leader. So if you want to say, we are all leaders. He said to me, well, what has caused the strike? What have we done to have brought this strike about? So we said to him, Mr. George Price has made certain pronouncements relating to the heads of agreement with which we totally disagree. But Mr. George Price is not the responsible organization, is not the responsible authority in the government. The responsible authority constitutionally is the British government. Only Britain can deal with external affairs and matter of defense. Mr. Price cannot deal with that. So we are not going to have any discussion with you, but we are asking you that you tell the British government that we want to speak to them directly. One or two of us need to go to London. So the next day he came back and he said, okay, the British government has agreed to see two of you. So you have to choose two people to go to London and to carry your position to the British government. So we met, and they decided to send Dr. Eddie Lang, and I was to go as Dr. Eddie Lang's assistant. And so we went to Whitehall, we went to London, we went to Whitehall, we met with the British government. So the first thing that came up at that meeting was, what has the British done to you, the people of Belize? So he said, we have no quarrel with the British. As a matter of fact, we have come here to ask the British government to continue to be in Belize and to continue to protect and help Belize, because we would prefer to be under British governance for the next 100 years than to spend one day under Guatemalan rule. So they said, would you be prepared to go on the BBC and say that? I said, sure, I will be prepared to go on the BBC and say that. That is our position. Before we left the meeting, they had arranged for the BBC reporters to come in and record us, me in particular, saying exactly that. So the British has the BBC has a recording of what was said to them. So they heard us out and they said, well, we thought from the result of the elections and from what Mr. George Price had been telling us, we thought that you people were sympathetic to Guatemala or would not mind having relationship with Guatemala. They said, well, Mr. Price has been telling you a lot of lies. He has been giving you the impression that when you win the election, it meant that Belize everybody in Belize was following him. But really, Belize population was class divided. 52% represent like the working class, and 48% represented the middle and upper classes. And the middle and upper classes never supported George Price in any way. And what has happened in this strike is that some of the working class people has joined with the middle class and upper classes and has shut the country down because we don't want anything at all to do with Guatemala. We don't want to have this heads of agreement over us.